I'm Theo Fleury, and I'm here to speak to you today about the biggest, most silent, most stigmatized epidemic we have on the planet, and that is trauma, mental health, and addiction. And all three live in the same house, okay? So my experience as a child was I grew up with two parents who experienced their own childhood trauma, and that manifested itself into addictions. And I grew up in a home that was very chaotic, very crazy, violent, and I didn't know at the time, but that was my first experience with trauma. Then as an adolescent, as a phenom hockey player in Manitoba, I ran into a coach who promised me a one-way ticket to the NHL. And that particular man, over a 2.5-year period, raped me 150 times. And, you know, what I was left with was a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, and a lot of anger. And, you know, it's hard to believe that almost 15 years ago, I had a fully loaded pistol in my mouth ready to pull the trigger and end my life. Not because I wanted to die, but I was completely exhausted from living in emotional pain and suffering for the majority of my life. And I tried everything on the planet to get rid of this pain. And so, you know, what happens to us is we experience trauma in our life. And I'll qualify all of you as trauma survivors by saying if you have parents, you've experienced trauma in your life, okay? And so what happens is trauma leaves us in emotional pain and suffering, okay? Which I call mental health. Mental health. And so how do we deal with this emotional pain and these mental health struggles that we have? Well, we tend to gravitate towards the dark side of life, and we get involved in addiction. Food, sex, gambling, drugs, alcohol, workaholism, you know, these stupid things that we carry around with us, phones, right? We get involved in addictions. And then eventually it takes us to a place where we have to make a choice and we have to make a decision. Am I going to die or am I going to live? And that's what happened to me 15 years ago when I had the gun in my mouth, was I had to make a choice and I had to make a decision. And that was the day I hit my knees and I surrendered. I said, I can't do this anymore. And I turned my will and my life over to the care of the universe as I understand it, right? Because when I drive the bus always crashes. Or left to my own defenses and me running my own life is a complete and utter disaster, right? So how do we rewire all of this trauma that we have in our life? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to forgive. We have to forgive. We have to forgive. And the first person we have to forgive is ourselves. Right? Wasn't our fault. Wasn't your fault. Right? The famous scene in Good Will Hunting. Wasn't your fault. And then, you know, we need to put a voice to that pain and to that suffering, which is vulnerability. Right? Vulnerability. And then we need to have compassion. Compassion. Because I was never taught compassion. Right? I was never taught compassion. I was never taught humility. Right? I was never taught any of those things. And so, you know, with this being a huge epidemic, you know, vulnerability is the key to changing how we deal with all of these afflictions, trauma, mental health, and addiction. Because vulnerability creates safety. And then when you have safety, that's when the magic of healing happens. And spirituality, right? We have to go on a spiritual journey, right? And I don't get the concept of the white bearded guy in the sky. I don't get that, right? I'm a recovering Catholic and I'm a recovering Jehovah's Witness. Because that was my two parents' religions, right? And to me, spirituality is all about relationship. Relationship. The relationship I have with myself first, right? Because if I don't love myself, you know what? I cannot be in a relationship with somebody else and love them if I don't love myself. That's why I've been married 3 times. Because I never loved myself. Never loved myself. And so I suggest that whatever you're dealing with, you just be honest. Because in 2009, when I wrote Playing with Fire, my autobiography, you know what happened? I got run over. I got completely run over by people at every book signing that were coming up to the table with my book clutched to their chest and their face buried in the floor. And they said, "Me too. Me too, me too, me too, me too, me too." I got run over. So guess what? You're not in the minority. You're in the majority. And that's what my research has taught me in 10 years. Is that we all have something that we've experienced that caused us to go down a different path. And with surrender and vulnerability and compassion, that's how you heal. Because Big Pharma owns every disease on the planet. They own it. And so we have an incredible amount of awareness around mental health and addiction and all these things, but yet we have the highest suicide rates in the history of our planet. So what's the disconnect? Stigma. Stigma. We got to get rid of the stigma. We got to get rid of the shame that's attached to all of this stuff. Right? And that's why I have made it my mission to change how we look at trauma, mental health, and addiction. You know, helping is healing. Helping is healing. And the more people I've helped, I've healed myself. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. It's relationship, right? It's relationship. It's being vulnerable. Being vulnerable. Finding your inner voice, finding the pain, and talk about your pain, right? But it's not the end of the journey. There's no such word as healed in the stuff that I'm talking about. It's just a continuum of healing for the rest of your life. I'm okay with that. I'm in therapy for the rest of my life, and I'm completely okay with that. Because every time I go and peel one more layer of the onion off, you know what? I get better. I have more understanding. My relationships continually get better. Honesty, openness, willingness. You know? I pray for one thing every day. To win the Lotto Max. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. The only thing I pray for is willingness. That's it. That's all I pray for, is willingness. And you know what? Every single day, one person is put in front of me who needs help, who's suffering, right? The next time you're at a party and you see that drunk guy who can't even talk because he's so hammered, don't look at him as he's got a problem or an addiction. That guy's in pain. That guy's suffering. That's why he's doing that. And forgiveness, 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 forgiveness. You know, I've been working in the prison system for the last 5 years with baddest dudes on the planet. Rapists, murderers, bank robbers, you name it. And you know what they've taught me? The first thing they taught me was compassion. And then the second thing they taught me was forgiveness. And it's been the greatest gift of my life, is forgiveness. Thank you.